Oregon continues to roll. And by the way, Duck fans, are we back? Quack, quack. Duck fans, come on. I bet against you. I lost constantly, and now we finally hit one. I was 0-4 picking Oregon games up until this week, but we finally hit. Oregon beats Michigan 38-17 in the Big House, and we hit on the picks. And by the way, we hit on all the picks. You saw all those green check marks. Thank you very much. That's another 5-0. We're still on an absolute heater. I know that we had a bit of a rough one last week, but we're still just cruising. By the way, we were 5-0 like 3 weeks ago. Now we're another 5-0. We are rolling with picks. You see the green check marks right there, and we're finally back on track with the Oregon Ducks. So we're now 1-4 picking Oregon games this year. They are number one in my top 10. I think they're the most complete team in the country. They're the team that has answered the most questions, stemming from the way that they struggled early in the year. I think that they are right now as complete a team in the country. They can beat you in several different ways. Dylan Gabriel continues to get better and better and better. If I had to label my 5 Heisman finalists, he's certainly going to be one of those, the way that he's playing. He seems more comfortable every single game that I watch him play under Will Stein's offense. That's an offense that has a lot of talent on the outside. I look at the combination of like Evan Stewart, Treshawn Holden, and I know I say Tez Johnson, but I know that the injury is there and the concerns are there. It looks like it could be either like the shoulder or the collarbone. So I hate that. I mean, the catches that these guys make, the speed that they carry on the outside, it is so difficult to defend these guys. They are ridiculous on the outside. But here's the thing. Their offensive line is playing well. Gabriel is a point guard. He can run it. He runs in that touchdown from distance. Their defense is solid. They're getting healthier at the right times. Jordan Birch back after missing the last 3. Terrence Ferguson, the tight end, he missed the last 2 after having an appendix removed. He's back in the lineup. This is a great team, folks, and they didn't do anything to dispel that thought in my mind going into Michigan and handling a Michigan team 38-17. I thought that they ran the ball well. The one question I would have is the injury concerns. Obviously, the Tez Johnson doesn't look good, but they still have Treshawn Holden. They still have Evan Stewart, so that's a good sign. Marcus Harper, their guard, left the game. Looks like he's going to be okay. He told Dan Lanning in the locker room that he was going to be just fine. Now, O-linemen always tell you they're going to be just fine. He went from left guard to right guard during their reshuffling earlier in the year. I tell you about fixing issues. Their offensive line was an issue early, and then all of a sudden it wasn't. Why? They fixed those issues. Part of that was Marcus Harper moving over to right guard, so we'll hope that he's okay. So Oregon's my new number one. Not even new. I had them number one. They're still my number one, I guess I should say. Now the team they beat. Okay, so Michigan, and this is going to be really quick because the disappointment for Michigan's season is palpable. But I just want to, after a loss to Oregon, I just want to step back and take stock for a moment in what's actually disappointing about Michigan's season, because I don't think a loss to Oregon is actually the disappointing part about Michigan's season. A loss to Texas is not actually the disappointing part of Michigan's season. The disappointing part of their season are the losses to Washington and Illinois. That's what fans would be more upset with. You see, this team was never going to have a huge margin for error. And so in those games against teams that they needed to beat and were going to be in close games, they had to play clean, no turnovers, play well on defense, not get penalized, win the field position battle. And when they didn't, they got beat handily. Here's the disappointing part of their season. They've played 7 games now against Power 4 teams. They've played 3 one-score close wins and 4 losses by double digits. So it's like, remember, a couple of those wins very easily could have been losses for Michigan. USC, Minnesota come to mind. Now you look up and you lose to Oregon, and it's like, this is not the game that I'm disappointed in. The other ones were. And so the season comes down to 2 things. moving forward for Michigan fans, the season comes down to two things. You can spoil Ohio State's chance to win a Big Ten championship, potentially, depending on what happens in the Ohio State-Indiana game. But that's always going to be motivation for Michigan, try to get their 4th straight win over the Buckeyes. And the next motivation is you got to turn over the roster. I know that's not great motivation for the locker room, but it should be for the coaching staff, because this coaching staff is going to go out there and they're going to have to recruit. They're going to have to identify the players on their own roster that they need to keep. Then they need to identify players on other rosters that they need to get. And then they need to identify recruits that they have to have. They've got to do all of those things. And it looks like that's starting to come around. They flipped a top 100 corner from Georgia this week. That gives them 5 players in the top 100 of the class for next year. They got a 5-star offensive tackle commit a few weeks ago. They lost their 4-star quarterback commitment, but that's largely because of the rumors surrounding their momentum to secure the commitment for Michigan native Bryce Underwood, the number 1 player in the country. He plays in Michigan, committed to LSU, but there's this talk of a strong push for Bryce Underwood. All of those things would be huge for Michigan because it's very apparent that the roster is going to need to get better in a hurry. All right. And then they need to move forward after that, because they're going to lose some of these first-round players after this season. And that's really where Michigan's season comes down to. Can you spoil it for an Indiana this week? Can you spoil it for an Ohio State?
Thank you for watching the Joel Klatt Show YouTube channel. And if you liked this clip, make sure to like it and subscribe to the channel, and you can stay up to date on all of my college football coverage.